Your Honor, on behalf of Aiden-Fucci, we enter a change of plea at this time, entering a guilty plea as charged.
Welcome in, and thank you for joining us here for First Coast News at noon. I'm Keitha Nelson.
And I'm Katie Jeffries. You heard it just moments ago, Aiden-Fucci changing his plea to guilty. Jury selection in the trial for the St. Johns County teenager was expected to begin this morning. As you can see here from photos in this morning from court, you can see Aiden-Fucci in the courtroom along with the family of Tristyn Bailey, the 13-year-old he killed on Mother's Day in 2021. We want to take you right out to St. Johns County now. And that's where we find on your side Renata Gregorio. She joins us live right outside of the courthouse this afternoon. Renata, this was a surprising turn of events. Now, inside of the courtroom, Aiden-Fucci addressed Tristyn Bailey's family. What did he have to say?
It was a really big surprise, Keitha. Now, towards the end of this relatively short court appearance, Aiden-Fucci's attorney said that he had a short statement that he wanted to make, and in it he said he was sorry to Bailey's family and to his family. Now, this was very unexpected. The trial and jury selection were both expected to last a few weeks. Fucci still is facing time in prison, life in prison, but the minimum he could receive is 40 years, with the possible review of his sentence after 25 years. The guilty plea means he admits stabbing 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey 114 times when he was 14 years old. The two were classmates at Patriot Oaks Academy in northern St. Johns County.
Mr. Fucci, is it your desire to enter a plea of guilty to one count of first-degree murder?
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry for the Bailey family and my family.
February 23rd is when we will be back in court. They have a status hearing where they will decide when the sentencing hearing will be. Now, very few people were in the courtroom. One of those people, though, was our executive producer, Ann Schindler, and she's with me now. So, Ann, you were in there, and it was a huge surprise. Just what was the mood like in the courtroom today?
Well, it really did catch everybody off guard. You know, court got started way late. It was supposed to start at 8:30, and around 9:30 people entered the courtroom. But we could tell that something was happening, partially because the family was there, not be there during jury selection, because all of the seats were taken and assigned jury seats. But they arrived and filled the first two rows of the courtroom, and that was kind of when we really got a sense that we were in for a dramatic change of events.
We were out here when you were inside for a little bit, and we didn't see too many people going in wearing that aqua that the family and the friends have been wearing at so many court appearances over the last almost 2 years in support of Tristyn Bailey. It was her favorite color. How was the family inside?
Well, they were, once again, they were decked out, and I'm not sure, I think they may have gone through a different entrance, but they were wearing shirts that said, "I'm your squad," with Tristyn Bailey's name spelled out in cursive on it. They were very somber, they were quiet. One of her sisters left in tears. The mother, her mother was hugging the prosecutor. It was an emotional event for them, but of course so much of this case has been just really difficult for the family.
Definitely. Thank you, Ann. We're going to continue this discussion coming up. We've got some more questions, a little bit more detail-wise in the next half hour, but for now we're going to send things back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks for that, Renata. And you know, with this news coming in the past couple of hours, it leaves a lot of questions about the next steps.
So Jeannie Blaylock is speaking with our legal analyst to talk more about those next steps. Jeannie.
Our legal analyst is Shannon Schatz. She's on the phone right now. We appreciate your joining us, Shannon. Now, she is an expert on juvenile law. And my first question, first of all, I mean, it's the day of jury selection, and Fucci says now that he is guilty. So how surprised are you?
Hey, Jeannie, I am very surprised by this development in the case. I think everyone is really anticipating this trial, and so many preparations were made for 2 weeks of trial testimony happening and a very intense jury selection that we've heard so much about. And for this last-minute 11th hour change, it's fascinating.
So let's look ahead. Can this guilty plea get Aiden-Fucci possibly a shorter time in prison?
So whenever juvenile pleads to any criminal offense as an adult, the court has to determine whether or not juvenile sanctions are appropriate, meaning he would go to a juvenile facility until he's 21 years old, or whether he should get an adult sanction where he could possibly face life in prison.
So his sentences, as we've been talking about, will be February 23rd, and a judge makes the decision. It's not a jury. So far, because he's a juvenile, we don't know if he's been diagnosed with any kind of mental health condition, a mental illness, but the defense might bring that up. Do you think they will?
Absolutely. The goal that the defense is trying to accomplish here is to make an argument for the child to be rehabilitated rather than simply punished in an adult sentence. So they will certainly try to make the argument that juvenile sanctions are appropriate and that he could be rehabilitated by bringing in expert witness testimony and talking about the story of his life, including any trauma that he might have experienced that resulted in him committing this heinous offense. Otherwise, they will be asking for a lesser sentence than the maximum, which is life, by presenting mitigation or good information about aiden-fucci.
And where could Fucci go to prison? As I understand it from talking with you earlier today, there are really two basic choices, a juvenile facility or a facility with the Department of Corrections, the adult prison, right?
Absolutely. And actually, there's a third option. He could be in a juvenile detention facility or commitment facility until he's 21, and at that point, the court would lose jurisdiction. He could go to a juvenile Department of Corrections facility where juveniles are kept separate from adults. And then when he turns 18, he would go to a regular prison.
So on that sentencing day, on February 23rd, will the prosecution show the photos that the judge has approved, the body of Tristyn Bailey with those terrible stab wounds, or does this guilty plea spare Tristyn Bailey's family from having to see all of that?
So my sources are telling me that we're going to hear from the Bailey family later today. They are ready to comment on this shocking development. And it's likely that they will not show those photos because we have to remember the judge has seen all the evidence in this case. He has made rulings on these photos, and he already knows how egregious this murder was. The state will be presenting as much aggravation as they can, including the impact on the Bailey family through witness statements and other evidence, but it's likely that they will not put the Bailey family through that since now they have been spared by not actually having to have a trial.
And so from your years of experience as a defense attorney, what advice would you give aiden-fucci? Would you have him speak at the sentencing hearing? Would he read a letter? What would happen?
So very interestingly, remorse cannot be considered in sentencing unless the defendant makes it an issue. And at this point, aiden-fucci has pled guilty, indicating that he committed this crime. He has admitted to it at this point, and he has apologized. So now he has raised the issue of remorse, and it could be considered in his sentencing. So as his attorney, I would want him to really make an impactful apology that is sincere. And his attorneys will probably be working with him on some sort of statement to really hammer home the fact that he is in fact remorseful, because it's very possible that the judge could listen to the words coming out of his mouth and not find that he's actually remorseful.
Well, we've already seen him in the back of the police car after he murdered Tristyn Bailey, making some hand gestures and saying on social media, does anybody know where Tristyn Bailey is? It's going to be hard to get past that particular example.
Certainly, but we have to remember that juveniles are different than adults, and there's so much case law on this, federal case law, and it's possible that you will see experts coming in to talk about brain science and brain development and why children commit these heinous crimes and the lack of development or brain development or issues with brain development that could explain to some extent the reason that he would have acted the way he acted or committed the crimes that he committed, and again making that argument for rehabilitation in a juvenile sanction.
And so one last question, we'll talk to you again between 12:30 and 1 and delve into a little bit more of the details, but from your experience, that sentencing hearing, it sounds like a whole list of very complex matters. Would we expect to hear from the judge a decision that day, or is it going to go on for a couple of days?
I anticipate that that February date will actually be a to be set, where they will make a decision about how many days the sentencing is going to last and maybe set it for a later time. It will just depend on the testimony. The judge may take it under advisement, meaning they will issue an order, or they may announce sentence on the record. And it's possible, in light of this crime, in light of the confession of this point and the admission of guilt, that there's only one sentence in this case, and that's life in prison.
Well, we'll have to see. It's definitely a dramatic change of of pathways here. Nobody really expected that this morning. We were expecting this long process of trying to interview the jurors, find some who are going to be objective, at least 6 of them to sit on this jury. But Shannon Schott, we appreciate your expertise as a defense and an expert on juvenile law, and we'll talk to you again in just a few minutes. Back to you guys on set.